Are you ready for the up and coming season? Live clearly, ready.
Welcome to the Clearly Ready channel. I have a question for you. Are you ready? Are you clearly ready? Well, let's leap into the episode. Today, we're going to talk about setting boundaries. Setting boundaries. I'm going to take a personal experience to start us off and tell a story about a time way back when I was a young woman. I had a family member that was in transition with her son and needed a place to stay. Now, against the words of wisdom from my granny, I allowed this family member to come in to my home and stay. That was not the mistake. The mistake was that I did so without setting defined boundaries. I allowed her to stay with the assumption that surely she would not overstay her welcome. And surely she knew that this was just a temporary situation. Well, I was wrong on both accounts. Setting boundaries are truly necessary when you are interacting with others, because it is not fair to make the assumption that people know your limits. Even if you feel like you've made it clear in your actions, people cannot read your actions properly all the time. Sometimes people misread one another. I mean, hey, there are times when I misread Charles, and we are pretty connected. I need for him to express verbally his boundaries to me so that I, in turn, can then respect those boundaries. So with that said, I had the responsibility in that situation with the family member to define the boundaries, and I did not do that. And as a result, things kind of ended a little sour. Thankfully, there was no violence, of course not, but they did end on a sour note. And that was pretty hurtful for me because I was only trying to help. And that's a clear illustration of why it is so important to set boundaries, because it protects you from being violated, it protects you from being hurt, it protects you from being disrespected. Boundaries are necessary, but understand this. Just because you set boundaries doesn't mean that everybody is going to respect your boundaries. Therefore, it's up to you to protect your boundaries. It's up to you to enforce your boundaries. Because if you look to others to do that, you're going to find yourself disappointed a lot of the time. In boundary setting, it's also important to realize boundaries that are set by others. For instance, our children, especially our adult children. As a parent of an adult child, actually 2 adult children, I have found myself in violation of crossing boundaries because I felt, hey, I'm your mom, so that gives me a pass. Well, guess what? It does not. It does not give me a pass. My children are now adults and they have boundaries. And as their parent, I have the responsibility to respect their boundaries the same as I would want them to respect mine. It's a funny story I like to share with my son and my grandson. So my son brought our grandson over for us to keep for the weekend, and he came with those parental instructions. Okay, Mom, you have to be careful when feeding him because he can only tolerate 4 ounces of feeding. And even if he cries, Mom, just burp him and don't feed him anymore. Well, I'm sure most of you who are parents know where this is going. Got time for feeding? I fed him, and sure enough, he cried. So what did I do? Of course I fed him some more. And as a result, I got all those additional 4 ounces thrown up all over my shirt. And all I could do was laugh because a boundary had been set as far as with the feeding, and me being Nana crossed that boundary with both eyes open, and as a result I suffered the consequences, which were I was thrown up all over. All I could do was laugh. And of course, when my son and daughter-in-law came back to get the baby, I shared the story with them, and he said, I told you. That was a minor cross, but it still was a cross of boundaries, and I still saw it as such. And as a result of that story, I am very intentional when I have my grandchildren to be sure to respect the boundaries set by their parents. I'm not overfeeding them chocolates and doing things that I know that their parents would not allow. No, you can't come over Nana's and watch a scary movie if that's not what you do at home. No, we're not going to listen to that song on the radio if that's not what your parents allow. We're going to adhere to the boundaries. And that took some practicing and getting used to. But again, it falls in that lane of setting boundaries and respecting boundaries. I respect the boundaries of my adult children. I don't necessarily agree with every boundary that they set, but that is not for me to do. It's their boundary, and therefore I respect their boundary. And I expect for them to respect my boundaries as well. And for the most part, they do. One of the most important boundaries that I have set for my life is for my peace of mind, my peace of space, my peace in life. So as a result of that boundary, if you are constantly coming into my space with negativity, with toxicity, I will have to adjust your access to me because you are shaking my peace. And that's not your responsibility or your fault. That's mine. So I have to make the adjustments. So as a result, there has been people that I no longer communicate with on a regular basis. Some I no longer communicate with at all. It wasn't a matter of them not being able to respect my boundaries. It was a matter of choice that they did not respect my boundaries, even after conversations. I've had people where I've said, please don't share my number without my permission, because I would not share your number without your permission. That is a boundary that I have set for myself. And if I set a boundary for me, I am going to extend that same respect to others. So if I don't want my number shared, I'm not going to share anyone else's number. I have literally had to threaten, hey, I will change my number and you won't have it if you share my number with one more person. Message was received, boundary was respected, life went on. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out like that. I've had other situations where I've expressed the time of night that I stop really taking phone calls. I mean, unless it's an emergency, please don't call me after 9. Don't call me at 12 o'clock at night saying, hey girl, what are you doing? Really? Even knowing that I have set boundaries on when I stop taking phone calls at night unless it's an emergency, I've had people continually call me at night after my set time with non-urgent conversations. I feel like, yes, there are options on the phone where you can put it on do not disturb, but I shouldn't have to do that because you cannot respect my boundaries. Setting boundaries is a way to protect your space, your peace. Everyone does not deserve a seat in the front row of your life. Everyone does not deserve to have intimate access to you. Or some people don't deserve to have personal access to you because what they're bringing is not peace. What they're bringing is not for your betterment. What they're bringing is not necessarily even for your good. It is up to you to set boundaries on how you're going to have relationship with people. And once you set those boundaries, it's up to you to protect those boundaries that you set. You don't have to explain them, but you do have to defend them. Proverbs 4:23 says, guard your heart with everything because the issues of life flows through it. In order for me to live my best life on purpose, it is important that I set boundaries because I am a giver. I give, and I give from a place deep in my heart. But in order for me to not give so much that I just give everything that I have, I must set boundaries. It's not always easy, but it is always necessary. So I encourage you to set boundaries. Be flexible with those boundaries because sometimes we do need to make adjustments. Take the necessary boundary setting leaps that fit your life. Until next time, live well, live in peace. Leap you later. One love.
Inspire others with the stories you
Really
express.
ready.
Look
Are
at
you ready?
you're
Take it with you.
clear
You'll open
ready.
it up. There'll be something here for you, I promise. Wonderful people. And I know she's a part-time angel.